Now, this is funny. Alleged president-elect Joe Biden has named Mayor Pete the transportation secretary. Well, he nominated him. You know, Mayor Pete couldn't even fix the potholes in South Bend, Indiana, where he was mayor. And now he's going to be in charge of nationwide potholes. Anyway, folks, greetings and welcome. Great to have you here. It's Rush Limbaugh, the EIB Network. Telephone number, if you want to be on the program, is 800-282-2882. And the email address, lrushbo@eibnet.us. Have a headline here for you. No, Biden hasn't won yet. There's one more nightmare scenario, and this is from thehill.com. And I'm gonna walk you through this. The turtle, Mitch McConnell, and one of his aides, John Thune, are begging Republican senators not to do this. Begging them not to do it. I'll explain it in due course, but I want you to hear a soundbite from Ron Johnson, Senate Homeland Security Governmental Affairs Committee hearing today on election security. The chairman of this committee is Ron Johnson, Republican, Wisconsin. And he and Gary Peters, who's the Democrat on the committee from Michigan, just listen to the bite. This is Ron Johnson telling Democrats and the deep state how they have lied for the last 4 years and now want to be totally excused and exonerated and essentially treated as though none of the last 4 years ever happened.
After our Hunter Biden investigation and the revelations of the Hunter Biden computer said, oh, this is Russian disinformation, now we find out, no, it's a real investigation by the Justice Department. So it's just galling, and I just have to point out that the purveyors of Russian disinformation, Hillary Clinton's campaign, the DNC, the Steele dossier, the ranking member Peters, accusing Senator Grassley and I of disseminating Russian disinformation, that's where the disinformation is coming. That's where the false information, the lies, the false allegations. I can't sit by here and listen to this and say that this is not disinformation, this hearing today. This is getting information we have to take a look at to restore confidence in our election integrity. We're not going to be able to just move on without bringing up these irregularities, examining them, and providing an explanation.
Mr. Chairman, I got to respond to that.
You lied repeatedly in the press that I was spreading Russian disinformation, and that was an outright lie, and I told you to stop lying, and you continue to do it.
This is not about airing your grievances. Mr. Chairman, you can't make these false allegations and then dropping it there. This is terrible what you're doing to this committee and all the great work that you talked about.
It is what you have done to this committee.
Exactly right. These people lied for 4 years. What Johnson's point here is exactly what you and I know. That the Democrats in this committee, the Democrats everywhere, Democrats in the media lied for 4 years about Trump and Russia and collusion. You know the drill. Then, when the Hunter Biden laptop story appeared in the New York Post, these same people said it's Russian disinformation. You had Adam Schiff saying it. You had John Brennan saying it, the former CIA, and Clapper, all these people saying that the New York Post story on Hunter Biden's laptop and all of the chicanery taking place, all the scandal, it was nothing but Russian disinformation. Then, after a few weeks go by, Hunter Biden admits that he has engaged in these behaviors and that his behavior is under investigation, tax fraud, any number of things. And Ron Johnson is fit to be tied here. Because they lied about him, they've lied about Trump, they've lied about everybody for the last 4 years, and claiming that Ron Johnson, by proposing that the New York Post story on Hunter Biden's laptop is serious, that it be taken seriously, be used as a starting point for an investigation, they tried to disqualify it by saying it's Russian disinformation. Essentially saying that Ron Johnson's a Russian stooge. When, of course, the truth is that it's the Chi-Coms we need to be focusing on and not the Russians. But this is this go-to that the Democrats have had. And Johnson is rightly and properly fed up with this. So he called them out on it, and you heard Peters, you can't use this committee hearing for these purposes. These are personal partisan. You can't. And Johnson wasn't having any of it. So I wanted you to hear it because it's about time. It's not gonna change much, but it still is an example of a Republican fighting back to a certain extent. Don't know how far, how much. Don't know how much it's going to matter, but nevertheless. Now to this Hill story. No, Biden hasn't won yet. There is one more nightmare scenario. Let me run through this for you, folks. Thinks that with the Supreme Court's rejection of the Texas lawsuit that it's over, right? Well, maybe not. Trump has one more card to play, depending on whether Republicans in Congress are more loyal to Trump than they are to the country. Now, you got to remember, this is thehill.com, and of course, it's going to have its share of snark as they report the story. So, depending on whether Republicans are more loyal to Trump than they are to the country. So, they set up a false straw dog that if you support Trump, you are automatically disloyal to the country. I mean, it's absurd, but such is the hatred for this guy. The hatred for Donald Trump shows no signs of abating. I don't think Trump could become invisible, which isn't going to happen. Even if he became invisible, even if he just vanished from the public scene, their hatred for this guy will not go away. It's going to continue to dominate them and govern much of their behavior. So here's the deal. After the electoral votes are cast, they have to be accepted by Congress. The electoral votes were cast on December 14th. By law, the House and the Senate meet together on January 6th. And if any state's ballots are challenged by one member of the House and one member of the Senate, then the House and the Senate must meet separately and vote on the challenge. Now, 126 members of Congress signed on to the Texas lawsuit to overturn Joe Biden's victory. That many Republican senators have not accepted Biden as the president-elect. Some states are going to be challenged. There's not 126 senators. There's a error in the way this is written. Let me read this paragraph. Given that 126 members of Congress signed on to the Texas lawsuit to overturn Biden's victory, and that many, not that many as in equaling 126, and that a lot of Republican senators have not accepted Biden as the president-elect, some states are going to be challenged. And this is where things get interesting. The controlling federal law, the Electoral Count Act, you ever heard of that? The ECA, the Electoral Count Act, it's more than 100 years old, said to be very opaque. It has never been fully used. And thehill.com says here it may not even be constitutional. Now, the Congress over which the old vice president will be presiding will be the new one, sworn in January 3rd. The new House, narrowly Democratic, will vote down any challenge, but the Senate, something very different could occur there because the Republicans, we don't know yet, but they're still going to control the Senate on this date. So, let's play. Let us suppose that the balance in the Senate is 52 to 48 Republican. However, Senators Romney, Ben Sasse, Susan Collins, and Lisa Murkowski have said that Biden won. So Biden wins in a close vote, right? And even if the Senate votes to uphold the challenges, the ECA has a tie-breaking provision. Any slate of electors that is certified by their state's governor will be accepted if the House and Senate disagree. So under that scenario, Biden again would win. Thus, The New York Times assumes that Republican challenges to the electoral votes would be futile. But what if the Senate never finishes voting? The Electoral Count Act limits each challenge to no more than 2 hours of debate. 4 states were questioned in the lawsuit: Georgia, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. Their practices were questioned. That makes 4 challenges and 8 hours of delay. Even in the Senate, 8 hours of debate cannot last more than a couple of days, right? Now, the law envisions the ability to challenge electoral votes collectively or individually. So somebody like Ted Cruz could come along and would challenge not every state, but each electoral vote separately. And as a delaying tactic, why wouldn't the Trumpers challenge every Biden state, even Delaware? The goal here in this procedure is not actually to win. The goal is to delay, to prevent the tie-breaking provision of the ECA from happening. Remember, the presiding officer under the Electoral Count Act would be Mike Pence. He could be expected to interpret the rules in a way highly favorable to the Republicans. Look, all of this is a real long shot, but I'm just pointing out that they're worried about it in the Senate. McConnell is worried that somebody in the Republican Party is going to try to trigger this and hope for a long shot of upsetting the apple cart and preventing Biden from being selected by the Electoral College. Pence could be expected to interpret the rules in a way highly favorable to Republicans. He can help the GOP delay any resolution until about January 18th. Now, I know this is confusing. And it's largely confusing because of journalism is such woeful state right now. People writing about these things have a tough time explaining them. But the Electoral Count Act, which I very, very brilliantly just described, is what Republican Trump supporters in 3 states have elected alternative electors for. That's why this happened. That's why they elected an alternative slate of electors, because of this, the Electoral Count Act. They were all thinking forward about how maybe they could put one more maneuver into play. Now, here comes the endgame maneuver. The Constitution specifies that if there is no Electoral College winner, the Senate chooses the vice president, and the House would pick the president. All of this came up, by the way, in Bush v. Gore in 2000. I don't expect a lot of people to remember it, but it did, because the Constitution was the same then as it is now. So, under this endgame maneuver, the Senate, claiming there's no Electoral College result, would pick Pence as the vice president. Overturning an election? Why not? The raw hatred and polarization in American politics has shown that no precedent or law is safe. Ask Merrick Garland. All these people at thehill.com are just fit to be tied. Now, it won't be a Biden-Pence administration. The Democrat majority in the House cannot pick Biden, because when picking a president, the House votes by state delegation, and the Republicans control more House delegations. This could result in Trump being elected president if they pull this off, because there are more Republican state delegations. It's not a matter that the Democrats control the House. It's the fact that there are more Republican state delegations, and that's how the vote is, because it's all relative to the Electoral College. Now, thehill.com says here that the House Democrats will never let this vote happen. If that's the case, if everything else that I've described happens, but that there is not a final vote, it means we won't have a president. If we don't have a president by noon on January 20th, the law of presidential succession comes into play. But who's next in line? Republicans will say that the presidency is empty, but the Senate did its job and picked Pence as vice president. The Democrats will say the whole process was illegal and unconstitutional, and that the next in line is therefore Pelosi. This would be the stalemate of all stalemates. An empty presidency at noon on January 20th. Trump tweeting that it should remain his, Democrats saying Pelosi or Biden, some Republicans secretly hoping it's Pence. And if you're thinking that the Supreme Court would save Biden, think again. It would probably rule the question to be a political one and therefore non-judiciable, meaning they wouldn't have standing to look at it anyway. There isn't a clear constitutional principle or law that the court could apply. That takes us to the next story, the headline of which is, let me get to the next page. McConnell urges GOP senators not to object to Electoral College vote. Oh, yeah, because it's said to be a guaranteed failure anyway. This is going nowhere. There is no hope for this. Don't any of you guys, no Republicans, don't fall for this. Don't try it. They're really worried about this scenario actually coming into play. Let me take a brief break because of the constraints of the programming format. I'm out of time, and we'll be back and continue in just a second.
We now take you behind the scenes at Hillary for President. Late at night.
Hi, welcome back. Rush Limbaugh, the EIB network, where we have more fun than human beings should be allowed to have. Now, I'm gonna run through the scenario again, because I realize that I read much of that verbatim as it was published by thehill.com, and some of it was disjointed, and I imagine a lot of you were confused, especially because there's a counter theory to this. And the counter theory is that the scenario described by thehill.com cannot happen and would not happen because January 6th, when Congress meets to record the votes of the Electoral College, any state's electoral votes can be challenged if one member of the House and one member of the Senate object. If that happens, then each chamber, House and Senate, would debate for 2 hours, then hold a floor vote on whether to accept the electoral votes or not. If the two chambers deadlock, with the House voting yes, the Senate voting no, then this theory says that the results certified by the governor of that state, whichever state we're talking about here, would become the tiebreaker, which, according to the counter theory here, means that there is no way to block Biden's victory. That's an answer to the Hill.com's scenario where they spell out how, if things happen, to force a vote in the House on who the president will be, the number of delegations in the House, since the House will vote by delegation, not by straight membership number. The Democrats control the House, but they do not have as many delegations as the Republicans do. So voting by delegation, the Republicans would then control the House and any vote there. But this counter theory says that the tiebreaker would go to the governor, the results certified by the governor of the state whose electoral votes are being challenged here. So in the case of Georgia, which is one of the states that the electoral votes, the alternate slate was elected, since Kemp has certified Biden the winner, then there's nothing anybody can do to stop it in this scenario. So while it's confusing, and it is a real long shot, let me still run through the scenario again and the competing scenarios which try to say that this isn't. But McConnell and Thune are begging Republican senators not to do this. So it.
Do you have trouble being taken seriously?
How did you know?
Do you long for that certain special something lacking in your voice?
Merry Christmas, happy holidays to one and all from all of us here at the Excellence in Broadcasting Network. Now, if you think that challenging the Electoral College votes when they have to be formally tallied by the Congress, you think that's unprecedented, let me remind you that 11 times the Democrats challenged the 2016 electoral vote count. It was interrupted 11 times. You have forgotten Hillary Clinton was in there trying to maneuver the Electoral College out of existence. They were trying to do all kinds of things to invalidate the Electoral College. 11 times Biden was interrupted during the electoral vote count. He was the sitting vice president at the time, presided over the joint session of Congress, where members officially tallied electoral votes from the 2016 presidential election. During the course of the certification, which is what the vote is, House Democrats tried to object to electoral votes from many states, Biden gaveling them down for failure to follow the rules. Objections to the votes needed to be in writing, needed to be signed by both a member of the House and a member of the Senate. Every House member who rose to object did so without a senator's signature. They were just trying to flummox the entire process. Jim McGovern, Massachusetts, rose to object to the certification from Alabama. Jamie Raskin of Maryland rose to object to 10 of Florida's 29 electoral votes. No sooner had the Florida question been settled than its neighbor to the north was the subject of another objection when Washington Representative Pramila Jayapal objected to Georgia's vote certificate. It went on and on 11 separate times. So don't think that if the Republicans do this, that it's somehow unprecedented. Here's another thing. I'm not sure this is exactly right, but it's close. I think it is the Republicans control 36 delegations in the House of Representatives and the Democrats 14. It's something close to that. And again, it's an illustration of why the Electoral College is so brilliant. Because the California delegation is huge in terms of numbers of people. And the New York delegation is huge in terms of the number of members. But the number of members is not the factor. The number of delegations is the factor. The House votes by delegation, not by individual member in this scenario. So the Republicans vastly outnumber the Democrats in terms of numbers of delegations. It would be a slam dunk vote if it got that far. And remember, the Democrats objected early. They objected often to the Electoral College vote in 2016. I mean, Maxine Waters and Barbara Lee objected 11 times, claiming the election was stolen by the Russians. And these Democrats are still out trying to make that claim. So let me run through this scenario one more time as I just get to the basics of it. Here again, by law, the House and Senate will meet together on January 6th to officially record the Electoral College vote. If any state's Electoral College ballots are challenged by one member of the House, one member of the Senate, so if somebody wants to challenge the Georgia vote, if somebody wants to challenge the Pennsylvania vote, all they got to do is get one senator and one member of the House to record the objection, the challenge. If that happens, everything stops. And the House and Senate then meet separately and vote on the challenge. Now, 126 members of Congress signed on to the Texas lawsuit to overturn Biden's victory. And a lot of Republican senators have not accepted Biden as the president-elect. So some states are going to be challenged, so goes the theory. That takes us to the Electoral Count Act, the ECA. It's more than 100 years old. It's never been fully used. So let's get a scenario here. Let's suppose the balance is 52-48 Republican. But let's say that Romney, Ben Sasse, Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski have said that Biden won, so Biden wins in a close vote. And even if the Senate votes to uphold the challenges, the ECA has a tie-breaking provision, and this would trigger, if these four things have these four Republican senators vote with Democrats, that would trigger the tiebreaker provision. Any slate of electors that is certified by their state's governor will be accepted if the House and Senate disagree. That brings the governor into play as a tiebreaker, and under one of the scenarios in opposition to this is that Governor Kemp in Georgia could totally put the kibosh on this by simply using the electoral count that he certified as the tiebreaker. But there are other states where this could work and could happen. So the key is delay. The key is to make sure that nothing final ever happens. So what happens if the Senate never finishes voting? The Electoral Count Act limits each challenge to no more than 2 hours of debate. Now, 4 states were questioned in the lawsuit, the Texas suit. That's Georgia, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. That makes 4 challenges, 2 hours of debate each equals 8 hours of debate/delay, even in the Senate. 8 hours of debate can't last more than a couple days, can it? It can last as long as anybody wants it to. Now, the law, pardon the sniffles here, folks, the law envisions the ability to challenge electoral votes collectively or individually. So you could have Ted Cruz, who would challenge not every state, but each electoral vote separately as a delaying tactic. Why wouldn't Trump supporters challenge every Biden state, even Delaware, if the objective here is delay? See, the goal here is not to win in this particular procedure at this stage. The goal is to delay, to prevent the tie-breaking provision from the ECA from happening. And again, the tie-breaking provision is the governor. And to repeat this, if the House and Senate deadlock, with the House voting yes, the Senate voting no on the certification of the Electoral College votes from a particular state, then the results certified by the governor of that state become the tiebreaker. That's what is hopefully prevented. Keep it from getting to that phase, getting it to the governor, in this case, Kemp in Georgia, providing the tiebreaker. The presiding officer under the Electoral Count Act is Mike Pence. And because he's vice president, he'd be expected to interpret the rules in a way highly favorable to Republicans. He can help the Republican delay any resolution until January 18th, if he wants. So now comes the end game maneuver. The Constitution specifies that if there is no Electoral College winner, which is the objective here, then the Senate chooses the vice president and the House picks the president. The Senate, claiming there's no Electoral College result because we haven't certified, we can't get them certified, there's too much going on here, they would pick Pence. Pence would be the vice president. But the House would not vote for Biden because the Democrats do not control the number of delegations in the House. The Republicans do. And the House vote would be by delegation, not by how many Republicans or Democrats total there are in the House. The Democrat majority in the House cannot pick Biden because when picking a president, according to these rules, the House would vote by state delegation, and the Republicans control more House delegations. So who's next in line? Succession? Republicans would claim that the presidency is empty, but the Senate did its job and they picked Pence. The Democrats will say the whole process was illegal and unconstitutional. The next in line would be Pelosi. Stalemate. An empty presidency at noon on January 12th. Look, this is a real long shot, but you're going to see a lot of talk about it, and I want you to try to have a base understanding of what this is as you hear it discussed elsewhere, cable news and wherever. So, empty presidency at noon on January 20th. Trump tweeting left and right that it should remain his. Democrats saying Pelosi or Biden, and some Republicans secretly hoping it's Pence. If you're thinking that the Supreme Court would save Biden, think again. It would probably rule the question to be a political one and not want any part of it, and not touch it. Although that's a long shot too. I think the Supreme Court is so invested in Democrats controlling things and a deep state being put back in power that the assumption that the Supreme Court would not want to touch this is a long shot. At any rate, this is how you could end up with Trump being reelected president by the House of Representatives. That's why the story, McConnell, Thune, Warren, Senate GOP, please don't object to any of the Electoral College results on January 6th. Don't do this. Because why would they issue this warning? Is it that they're afraid the party will look silly? How silly does the Republican Party already look? No, they don't want any hiccups on the road to Biden being officially elected by the Electoral College. And I just want to, again, stress it is a very, very, very long shot. But it is a possibility, and it's still out there as a possibility. And I just wanted you to be as up to speed understanding it as you could be. We'll take a brief break. We'll come back and resume right after this.
Rush Limbaugh, because we know for you only the...
Half my brain tied behind my back just to make it fair. Fairness, the essence of the EIB network. You know, Vice President Biden tried to take Trump out using a Logan Act. That has not ever been done before. Nobody has ever prosecuted anybody under the Logan Act, but Biden came up with the idea in that January 5 Oval Orifice meeting in 2017 with Obama, where they plotted the strategy to get the Steele dossier in the news the next day by having Comey tell Trump about it at a meeting at Trump Tower. It was Biden who suggested that they try to take Trump out, disqualify him as president using a Logan Act. So why shouldn't the Republicans use some little or never used long shot law like the Electoral Count Act to take down Biden? Fair is fair, is it not? Biden tried to take Trump out using the Logan Act. It's never been used. It may not even be constitutional. So a little tit for tat here. Yeah, we'll take Biden out using the Electoral Count Act and maneuver things into a delay to finally where there has to be a vote in the House by a delegation on who the president is. I'm just asking. I'm not suggesting. No. And by the way, there's some guy in Texas that just passed a secession law, and he didn't call me about it, so I didn't know anything about it. What? What? I don't think what's a good idea. Oh, well, here's the thing. There is a movement throughout the blogosphere. Well, no, I can't say throughout the blog. There was a movement in the mainstream Republican Party to shame Republicans in the Senate from not doing this. Under the premise that it's such a long shot, it can't happen, there is no way, and the only reason you Republicans would do it would be to ingratiate yourself with the base, and that is a mistake. Don't do it. You Republicans constantly shoot yourselves in the foot. Meanwhile, if you go back to 2016, the Democrats used this attempt 11 times. They interrupted the Electoral College vote 11 times. And they didn't pay a price. In fact, when the media was reporting on this, they talked about, wow, what if the Democrats pull this off? They were all excited. Now, I know the same kind of coverage will not happen if the same thing happens on January 6th with the Republicans invoking this procedure. But I'm just telling you, there is an effort And here's, McConnell warns Senate Republicans, please don't object to any of the Electoral College results. Another headline, McConnell urges Republican senators not to object to Electoral College vote. Why? Why? The Republicans are always coming up with this strategy. Let's not upset the apple cart. Let's show the left that we're responsible. Let's show the media that we're okay, that we're not frivolous. Let's demonstrate that we're not who they think we are. It never works. Never works. Let me grab a call here before the hour ends. This is Mac in Las Vegas. Glad you called. Welcome to the program, Mac. Hi.
Thanks, Rush. Major mega dittos from a Rush baby that's been listening since 1990 when he was a freshman in high school.
You're almost a lifer. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and we're praying for you and your family as well, too. My family is. I got to say, as much as I want President Trump to remain in office, I got to go with Senator McConnell on this one. And that's because there's already such a civic ignorance about the Electoral College that if this were to happen, Republicans were to do this, then it would create such confusion that there's a movement to abolish the Electoral College right now, and this would give them the fodder that they needed, the rallying cry to say, hey, look how bad the Electoral College is. The Republicans used it to steal the election, and it would be a very big push to abolish the Electoral College when we need it. And I feel like it would be sacrificing the war to win a battle today.
Okay, well, I'll have to take your comments under advisement on the Electoral College because I'm out of time to respond now. So I will reserve my response for when I have more time on the Electoral College.
Limbaugh,
thanks for the call.
Making radio great again. You're listening to the EIB Network.
You know, I think anything that educates people on the brilliance of the electoral college, anything that educates people on that, as opposed to the electoral college, the electoral college, if we can educate people on that, then I say, why not? Brief break, top of the hour, back with more in a moment. Okay, let me officially answer our last caller and our first caller of the day, who's afraid that if this Electoral Count Act is used to thwart Biden's election by the Electoral College, our caller was afraid that doing this would just facilitate the Democrats' desire to get rid of the Electoral College. The Democrats don't want to get rid of the Electoral College now, folks. Since they won, since they think Biden won, they don't want to get rid of it. Now, the idea that this might motivate them to get rid of it, nah, don't think so. I really do fall down on it this way, or come down on it this way. I'm all for educating people. I think there is such a lack of understanding about the Electoral College anyway, that anything that would further educate people on how it works and how brilliant it is. Do you realize having the House in this scenario that utilizes the Electoral Count Act? Look, folks, it's a long shot. I don't want to create a false sense here. It's a vast long shot. But that is also illustrative of the brilliance of the Founding Fathers in creating the Electoral College. The Electoral College was created to avoid the direct democracy of electing the president, get rid of the popular vote, because they knew that population centers would be vastly different in size, and they had to find a way to equalize that. It's as though they knew in advance that California and New York would be vastly more populated than many other states, and if the election of the president was determined by the popular vote alone, then heavily populated areas would determine who the president is. So in the way they were thinking, why should 2 or 3 states determine the president every election? That's not fair. So they came up with the Electoral College, and they appointed a number of electors per state based on the size of that state's congressional delegation. And that ended up eliminating the popular vote advantage of populous states. It was brilliant in its conception, as is the Electoral Count Act. Having in the case of the House electing the president and the Senate electing the vice president, in terms of the House, they determined that the vote would be by delegation, which is a continuation of the same theory utilized in the creation of the Electoral College. It eliminates the population centers from having an unfair, outsized advantage. So in the case of the House electing the president, should that scenario ever happen, the vote in the House is by delegation, not by individual members. Now, the Democrats control the House, and even after the new House is sworn in, despite the Republican gains, they will still control the House. But the vote would be by virtue of delegation. The Republicans, it's like have you seen the county map of the country after a presidential election. 99% red, 95% red. But there you got blue in New York. You got blue in California. You got blue along the border in Texas. But the number of counties that are red dwarfs the number of counties that are blue. But the populous counties that are blue outnumber, in some scenarios, the vast number of counties that are red. And so the Electoral College and the Electoral Count Act both suffice to equalize the unfair disadvantage that highly populated areas have. And anything that educates people how this works is good in my book. So that's that. I think that the Republicans who oppose this, they want to maintain their positions in the establishment, and they're probably going to end up prevailing. But it is a long shot. I want to remind you, though, of another effort that was made to undermine the Electoral College back in 2016. Does the name Lessig, Larry Lessig, ring a bell? Larry Lessig is a Harvard University constitutional law professor, and he made a brief run for the 2016 Democrat presidential nomination. He bombed, obviously. But back on December 13th, 2016, 4 years ago, Larry Lessig claimed that 20 Republican members of the Electoral College were considering voting against Trump. Had that happened, that would put anti-Trump activists more than halfway towards stalling Trump's election. He's lying through his teeth. It wasn't the case, but he's out there saying it, and the media is out there reporting it. Larry Lessig even have a name for this group called Electors Trust. And he was offering pro bono legal counsel to Republican presidential electors considering ditching Trump. He's been acting as a clearinghouse for electors to privately communicate their intentions. This guy was trying to sabotage the Electoral College himself. That's why you remember the name, Mr. Snerdley. And he claimed that he had, by December 13th, that he had found 20 Trump electors that were going to flip. But he provided no evidence to back up the claim. He said his group had heard from 20 Republicans who were open to breaking with Trump. But if you recall, when it came time to actually count the votes, the Electoral College, none of this happened. None of the Democrats' claims happened. The Electoral College persevered. It triumphed. And it probably is going to be the same circumstance, the same thing this time. I just wanted to share with you the scenario that remains, the one remaining scenario that could thwart the election of plugs. And as I say, folks, it's a tremendous long shot. And the people that run the Senate on the Republican side want no part of it. And because they want no part of it, and since they run the Senate, they've got all kinds of options available to them to thwart an effort like this. So, just to keep a sharp eye. And I wanted you to know what's going on so that when it's discussed, you'll have a baseline understanding. Let me get to the audio soundbites. I want to start here with number one. NPR has decided they need to listen to this program for signs that Trump is going to concede. All things considered. The co-host is Elsa Chang, and she's talking to their national political correspondent, a guy named Don Gagne. She said, what about conservative media outlets? Like, we know that Trump watches them very closely. What are they saying about the Electoral College vote?
Not surprisingly, when you tune into Newsmax or One America News, you don't hear proclamations that the election is over. You hear a lot about Hunter Biden. But listen to this from Rush Limbaugh this afternoon. He doesn't say Biden won outright, but give a listen.
Do you realize how much of cable news is going to have nothing to talk about now that Trump is gone or allegedly gone? Don't get mad at me here, folks. I'm just saying that without Trump in the White House providing media fodder countless hours per day, they're not going to know what to do.
And of course, it goes without saying, if President Trump had conceded, we would have led with that. He's still tweeting today false claims about election fraud.
Still tweeting false claims about election fraud and waiting for Trump to concede. Trump hasn't conceded. He hasn't conceded because of this long shot possibility in the House. There's no way Trump's going to concede. Remember, the objective of this long shot possibility is to delay things up to January 18th. Here's little Brian Stelter, CNN, reporting on conservative media, claiming that I framed Trump's Supreme Court loss as an elitist plot.
Rush Limbaugh framed Trump's Supreme Court loss as some sort of elitist plot.
This is strictly about getting rid of Donald Trump. There isn't an entity in the American deep state, Washington establishment, whatever, that doesn't want to get rid of Donald Trump, including enough justices on the Supreme Court.
There is supply for these lies because there is demand for these lies. Demand that is not going away.
What lies? What lies? Brian, come on. Are you really this obtuse? I guess he may be. Do you really not understand the hatred for Trump at every level of the Washington establishment? From the judicial branch to the legislative branch to even in the executive branch, Trump was undermined by saboteurs throughout his 4 years. The idea that it's somehow a lie to say that there isn't an entity in the American deep state that doesn't want rid of Donald Trump? That's not a lie, whether there's demand or supply, whatever. It simply happens to be the case. Now, I said yesterday on this very program that Joe Biden serves at the pleasure of Obama. I want you to listen to this next soundbite, audio soundbite. Number 4, this Jeff Zeleny, he's at CNN Situation Room, and this is what he said about Biden.
The president-elect, he's back on the campaign trail with his own victory affirmed by the Electoral College now. He's fighting for the Senate. Give us the latest development.
Well, President-elect Joe Biden did finish speaking here.
Did you hear that faux pas? President-elect Joe Obama confirming my assertion that Biden serves at the pleasure of Obama. Make no mistake, and that's not a lie based on supply or demand. It's not a lie in any shape, manner, or form. Biden knows it, too, by the way. He knows he's serving at the pleasure of Barack Obama. Obama's the guy that made all of this happen. Look, let me take a brief time out here. We'll come back. I want to get back to the phones. I promised people we'll spend more time on the phones than usual, and I want to get started on that promise. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
This Christmas, put a little Limbaugh under the tree with gift subscriptions to the Limbaugh Letter. Your gift of Rush's monthly newsletter will provide an oasis of inspiration, education, and logic for your lucky gift recipient throughout the year. Order now at rushlimbaugh.com. You're listening to the EIB Network.
Hi, how are you? Welcome back. So the Republicans want Eric Swalwell thrown off of the House Intelligence Committee because he's been having an affair with a Chinese babe named Bang Bang. And I call her Bang Bang. I mean, I'm just trying to convey what's been going on there between Swalwell and the Chi-Com spy. She fang, fing, fang, whatever. Bang, bang, as far as I'm concerned. Swalwell been doing the nasty with bang, bang. And the Republicans want him thrown off the committee. He's been compromised by a spy. And the Democrats are going bonkers, saying this is not right, it's not fair. He can see a Chinese spy, he can bang a Chinese spy and still do his job in the committee. Now, I have a tweet here by a young conservative woman named Caitlin Bennett. You know, this program's inspired a lot of young conservatives over the years, and this babe may be one of them. Listen to this tweet. This is so hot. If you're a Democrat, you can get away with anything you want. You can sleep with a Chinese spy. You can masturbate in front of coworkers. That's Jeffrey Toobin. You can cheat an election. You can get millions of dollars from Ukraine. That's Hunter Biden. You can burn cities. That's Portland and Seattle. And you do all that without consequence. But if you're conservative, you can't even smile at a Native American. That would be Nick Sandman. Is that not a great tweet? Fabulous, fabulous tweet. By the way, speaking of Toobin, the left is trying to save his gig. They got, what's-her-face, Tina Brown. They're out there trying to say, hey, you know what, he didn't mean to do it. He didn't mean to masturbate? Well, no, he didn't mean to do it in front of people. Oh, it was an accident. The camera was on, pointed at the pubic area. Yeah, essentially. It was an accident. He didn't know he was doing it. There's no reason why public masturbation should destroy a 30-year career at a great liberal publication like The New Yorker. They're trying to get the guy reinstated. Okay, back to the phones. My adopted hometown, Sacramento, California. This is Robbie. Welcome, sir. Great to have you here. Hello.
Hi, Rush Limbaugh. Yesterday you had a caller who was asking who the next leader of the Republican Party should be, as if Donald Trump has faded into oblivion. And there was talk about winning more Republican seats in the future. What? Are we going to play some gigantic game of house? If we step past what has just happened in this presidential election, as if nothing happened, if we do not deal with it, we have stepped from what was America into tyranny. What will be left other than one gigantic pretend game of politics?
I don't disagree with that. I'm trying to think back. I asked who would be the Republican leader in the future. I asked that question. I asked of who?
Well, a caller yesterday was posing that question. There was some discussion on it. And, you know, and there's been some talk about 2022, 2024, but what's the point of discussing any future election if we don't deal with what's just happened?
Oh, well, you're preaching to the choir on that. My point about this from the very beginning has been the integrity of the Constitution, the integrity of our electoral system, and the Democrats are the ones that have blown it up. And if this is not resolved, and it doesn't look like it's going to be, then how can we assume that any election down the road is legit and fair? We're on the same page here. But that still doesn't mean that it doesn't matter who's going to be the leader of a political movement. You're still going to have that.
I know. I guess I'm just wondering what's the point. It looks to me like if we don't deal with what has just happened, we're just going to be playing one gigantic game of pretending our votes mean something, pretending that we can influence what's going to happen.
Okay, so what should happen? I mean, there have been serious efforts. A lot of people have worked very hard to try to expose this and to fix it, and they've bombed out. What do you think should be the next step, the next phase?
Well, I think Mark Stein, your guest host, was saying on Monday, this is the hill to die on. And I think we have to stand up against tyranny or we're going to be living with it. We're living with it right now until this is dealt with, and we will be living with it continually until this is dealt with. So I don't have the answers other than to just encourage all of the listeners. We have got to stand up against tyranny. This is our generation. This is our moment.
I don't disagree with that. And I think you have 74 million people that did. They voted for Trump. They were cheated. They were defrauded. There's no question that something really out of whack happened in this election. And, asking them to do more, that's a hill to die on. I understand the sentiment, but where's the hill? And let's define dying.
Well, maybe more callers can weigh in on this point. I do want to take issue with the 74 million figure. I keep hearing the 70 million figure, the 74 million figure. I think we need to add a plus on the end because I just have great doubts that is accurate and that is high enough.
Okay. Well, so I've heard some people think Trump may have even said 80. I'm not sure where I've heard that number bandied about. Yeah, look, I totally understand the sentiment that you have. I understand the frustration that you have, and to say that this is a hill to die on, that if we accept this, meaning if we accept Biden as president, then we've cooked our own goose, and that we are just living in a pretend world, to use your term, where our votes supposedly matter, but they actually don't. Because we will have been hoodwinked and cheated and so forth and so on. Short of something that prevents Biden being elected going forward, I got to take a break. Back in a second. Hey, Robbie in Sacramento. I know you're still out there. I'm going to tell you what's up here. I have, just after we ended our call, I became made aware of a soundbite from Josh Hawley, great senator from Missouri, who is participating in this hearing today on election fraud, the Senate Homeland Security Committee. He said, and I sent this up for the audio. It'll be a while, but we'll get it. He said 74 million Americans, there's the number. You wish he would say 74 million plus. But regardless, he said 74 million Americans are not going to shut up. It is not a recipe for success in this country, nor for unity. So you got Josh Hawley on your side. You have me on your side. You have a whole lot of people on your side. And Hawley is saying the people that voted for Trump and most likely elected him are not going to shut up. Now, this means whatever you want to interpret it to mean. Biden, let's say Biden is officially named president by virtue of Electoral College, said his long shot effort bombs. Hawley's point is that we're not going to shut up about this, and we're going to continue to prosecute this, and we're going to continue to investigate this, and we're going to find ways to illustrate that this election was fraudulent. That's one of the things. You want to shut this down, folks? Do you want to really simply shut this down? I told you how to do it last week. And I'm not the only one by any stretch of imagination. If you want to shut this garbage down, it's time for voter ID. It's time for photo ID for everybody that votes. And it's time to get rid of mail-in ballots. You do those two things. And the only reason we've got massive mail-in ballots is COVID. COVID-19. It's being exploited and used for the express purpose of electing Democrats. But if we succeeded, if we went on a tear, and we just made it abundantly clear that we're not stopping until we get photo voter ID. We have to have a photo ID for everything else we do in this country. The reason we don't have it for elections is because the Democrats have convinced a bunch of old African Americans it's a government plot to find out who they are, to kick them out of their houses, or to send them back to wherever. They've got them scared to death. But until we get to photo ID, voter ID, we're not gonna make serious inroads into cleaning up these elections. Right now, the absence of voter ID, photo voter ID, is just a recipe. It is a recipe for fraud waiting to happen. It's how people can vote multiple times. It's how the dead can vote. And it ought to wake everybody up that the Democrat Party, is who opposes this. Why? They don't oppose photo ID to get on an airplane. They don't oppose it to buy food. They don't oppose it to get a loan. They don't oppose anything except voting. And let's try this headline. Trump to Mitch McConnell. Hey, too soon to give up on election fight. So it looks to me like Trump appears to be pursuing this long-shot strategery that I described in the first hour. Looks like Trump is all in. Trump today told Mitch McConnell that it's too early to stop fighting to overturn the election after McConnell congratulated Biden following the Electoral College vote. Trump said, Mitch, 75 million votes, a record for a sitting president by a lot. It's too soon to give up. The Republican Party must finally learn to fight. People are angry. And boy, are they. You know, Robbie in Sacramento was a great stand-in for the millions of you out there who are fit to be tied over this. I know you're there. I know you're livid. I know you're outraged by it. I know you're fed up with the Republicans just wanting this to end because they want the confrontation to end. They just want to move on. It's just easier. It's just easier for there to be no controversy in this stuff, and it's just easier to have a guy like Biden president. You know, he's an establishment guy. We get back to normal here. But Trump thinks he's been cheated. He thinks he's been wronged. He wants to get to the bottom of it. There's still one long shot to be played, and it sounds like he is in favor of it. Here is Frank in Los Gatos, California. Welcome, sir. Great to have you here.
Thanks for taking my call, Rush. Yeah, I'm one of those 74 million plus that's fit to be tied. I'm calling about the last caller last night. He was really agitated, really frustrated, and he was passionate too. And I know Mr. Snerdley reminded me that he kind of was dumping on you a little bit, but he's speaking for millions of us. I am so tired of the GOP. They are the most worthless party probably in history. And
let me I know who you're talking about. This guy. Do you realize how easy it is for somebody anonymous to sit out there? This guy was accusing me, not just elected Republicans. He was dumping all over everybody. He was accusing me and everybody else in conservative media of being fooled and taken advantage of by Democrats. He said, you know how easy is it to say that burning down Portland is just a diversion that you fell for, and burning down Seattle is just a diversion that you fell for. You should have seen what was going on. You should have seen. What were you doing appearing on the Breakfast Club? You got hoodwinked. You got fooled. They took advantage of it. It's easy to say that the Democrats are brilliant, that they're constantly running these games where they're making fools out of us, but that's not what this was. And for this guy, I understand how easy it is to be mad at the Republicans for seemingly never fighting, but this was the Republican Party that was led by Donald Trump. You got to throw him in this bunch too. If you want to say that those of us in conservative media got hoodwinked and were made fools of, you got to throw Trump in there too, because Trump was the leader of this movement, doing everything he could to triumph and win. And that's the guy in his comments yesterday. Those are the only things he said that offended me and bothered me. He can say what he wants about how brilliant the Democrats are and how stupid we all are and being hoodwinked, but that's so easy. That is so easy to say without any kind of backup. The Democrats are not that brilliant. They're not that much smarter than we are. And to chalk everything up to that, to us being fools, that's just a little much for me to take. I just didn't have time to react to the guy because he was the last caller, as you said.
If the GOP, though, had rallied around Trump the last 4 years and gave him even half.
Well, okay, fine. But don't throw me in that bunch. I rallied around Trump. Russ,
I'm not throwing you in that bunch. I'm not.
That guy did. That guy did.
But I'm not. But I'm just trying to make a point about the GOP. The GOP, if they gave Trump just half the support that Barack Obama got from the Democrats, we wouldn't be in this trouble. And
amen. Amen.
Yeah, and let me paint this picture about how I feel about the GOP. You have a husband and wife and a daughter. The husband rapes the daughter every other night, and the wife knows and does nothing about it. And the wife is the Republican Party. That's how I feel about the Republican Party.
Holy smokes. Now we're throwing rape into the mix. Wow.
They're hard. They don't do anything. They sit on their hands and don't do anything. It's like they just watch. And the Democrats are evil. They're horrible, and they get away with it. And why wouldn't they try to steal the election? Who's going to stand up to them except Trump? He's the only guy. The 74 million of us, we don't count.
Yeah, 74 million plus. You got to say plus now. You got to say plus. Got to say plus. Say it. 74 million plus.
74 million plus.
All right. Plus. Now you're good. Now, look. I happen to be the guy that told you people how Trump was undermined in the first 6 months of his administration. Trump assumed that the Republican Party would unify behind him because that's just what happens. President's elected, people in the party unite, but they didn't in the House of Representatives. The first 6 months of Trump's term, the majority of Republicans in the House believed this silly BS that Trump had colluded with the Russians. And they thought Trump was toast. They thought Trump wasn't going to survive as president. They thought he was going to be dispatched somehow. So they didn't join him in the repeal of Obamacare and the rewriting of the American healthcare system because they thought he wasn't going to be around. It was maybe 6-7 months into his first term before they finally figured out that the Russian thing was a hoax. Now, you want to talk about frustrating? That was, I can't tell you how frustrating that was to me. But I can't disagree with your assessment here of the Republican. Look at the Republican establishment is as much a part of the Washington establishment as the Democrat establishment is. Never Trumpers, the rhinos, throw them all in. It's a massive and powerful group of people that have been around since the post-World War II era and maybe even prior to that. But post-World War II is when all of this establishment stuff began and the effort to move toward globalism with the United States in a prominent role began. And then as time passed, the prominence of the United States in globalism began to deteriorate as the globalists realized that if they were ever going to realize their globalist dream, the United States was going to have to be de-emphasized. It was going to have to be rendered something other than a superpower, even though it would maintain a superpower military. They had to do something to take away from the resolve of the United States to act as a superpower, to act as a moral leader, and they succeeded. And that's eventually what led us to Trump and Make America Great Again. These people, beginning in the post-World War II era, McCain referred to it, by the way, during the Trump campaign. He didn't understand why we were trying to undo the new world order that we ran through World War II. Well, the fact that we were running it meant that we had Americans who were doing their best to de-emphasize the power of the United States in this arrangement. That went on for decades to eventually leading to Trump and Make America Great Again, put America first again. And you saw how controversial that was. And they never stopped opposing Trump. They never stopped being deathly afraid of Trump. They never stopped doing anything they could to undermine Trump and his effort to make America great again and to establish the premise of America first. Because these people do not think the United States is the good guys. They don't look at the United States as having any moral superiority over other nations. For political reasons. I got to take a break. I'm way long here, but we'll be back and continue after this, so don't go away.
The wonder of Rush will continue on the EIB network.
We are back. Rush Limbaugh, the EIB network, and day 2 of the Republican Suck. Here is Tom in Dexter, Michigan. Great to have you, sir. How you doing?
Merry Christmas and 74 million plus dittos.
Thank you, sir, very much.
Well, like many, my day job died from COVID a while back, and this past Saturday I filled out my last chip for unemployment. And I'm wondering, is the Obama-era calculation, the thing he put into effect in his first term, still in there that if you aren't receiving unemployment, you don't count in the universe of jobs anymore in order to keep that?
You know, that is a good question, and I don't know. I don't know if the Obama method of counting unemployment has survived or not.
Tucker alluded to it the other night, which got me thinking about it. And I figured, well, you might know about this thing, but it's like, are we going to suddenly see unemployment drop to 0 at the end of December or in January when whoever gets inaugurated, suddenly unemployment's 0?
No.
Even though we know that's not real?
You don't expect unemployment to get down to 0, do you?
Well, it could get below 3. There's a lot of people who are unemployed who got unemployed early on, and all their benefits went out. So that means for that one, what is it, the U6 and the U9, or the one calculation, they don't count anymore.
Well, no, the U6 and the U3.
That's it.
They still exist, and they existed prior to Obama.
Right, but when Obama changed the calculation, the two split. They didn't track in parallel with each other. They count things slightly differently. But I know there was a point where one was diverging much more differently than the other one. And under Trump, they kind of got back in line because so many people got jobs again. And the numbers really did track. But now I think we're going to see a split again where one of them is tracking reality and one of them is tracking this fantasy number if the old calculations in effect and people who aren't receiving unemployment benefits don't count as unemployed anymore. Kind of in the weeds, but...
Well, I don't know that was specific to Obama either. My memory is that once your unemployment benefits expired, and if you were not seen as seeking employment, then you weren't counted as being unemployed. I don't think that's an Obama-era change. I think that's always been the case. Now, I would have to double-check, of course. There may be 74+ million that would disagree with me on it, but I'm going to have to...
He jiggered the number in order to get his number below 8% because presidents don't get reelected if their unemployment number's above 8. So he did something that caused him to drop.
Yeah. I remember. I just don't remember the specifics. And I'm going to have to check. Anyway, I appreciate the call, Tom, very much. I think. Unemployment, which the unemployment figure that's reported is the U3. And it's not the most accurate calculation. U6 is actually the most accurate calculation, but the U3 is what's reported, letter U, 3. And it still only counts people who are still looking for work, theoretically. And that's based on projections, as well. The whole unemployment, the Bureau of Labor Statistics and these numbers are largely projections anyway based on various computer models of the past because there's no way they can interview everybody that doesn't have a job and find out what they're doing. So they have to come up with these projections based on past behavior.
Resistance is futile. Rush on the EIB network.
greetings to you, music lovers, thrill seekers all across the fruited plain. Time for yet another hour of broadcast excellence hosted by me, your guiding light, Rush Limbaugh, a household name in all four corners of the world. A telephone number if you want to be on the big program. 800-282-2882. Email address lrushbaugh@eibnet.us. So I want to go back to the hearing, the Senate Homeland Security Committee hearing on election fraud, and I just need to check the audio soundbite roster to make sure that what I'm going to tell you I do not have in the roster of audio soundbite. Looking for Krebs, don't have Krebs. Okay. It's a curious little story here. The Senate Committee on Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs today having their oversight hearing to examine irregularities in the 2020 election. Now, you know the guy named Chris Krebs. Chris Krebs was the director of cybersecurity and infrastructure security, the agency that Trump fired for saying that the election was fair. It was above board. It was a clean and pure as the wind-driven snow election. So Trump fires the guy. Rand Paul just put him down. Rand Paul said the fraud happened. This election in many ways was stolen. Now, Krebs was recently fired by Trump for saying the 2020 election was the most secure in U.S. history. Rand Paul, and by the way, the reason I know about this, the top of the hour news on many of your affiliates around the country reported on what Krebs said, but they did not report on what Rand Paul said in response. They're simply reporting out there that Krebs said this was the most secure election in maybe American history. And Rand Paul reacted and said the courts haven't decided the facts. They never looked at the facts. The courts have not done their jobs here. The fraud happened, Mr. Krebs. The election in many ways was stolen, and the only way it'll be fixed is by, in the future, reinforcing the laws. The top of the hour broadcast news did not report what Rand Paul said, so I wanted to make sure and tell you. Now, here is Josh Hawley. He's a member of the Homeland Security Committee. He is thought to be an eager seeker of the Republican nomination in 2024. He's thought to be somebody lining up to seek the Republican nomination in 2024. He's a senator from Missouri, and I told you earlier that he was literally telling all the witnesses who are testifying in this committee that 74 million Americans are not going to shut up over this. We're not just going to go away and pretend that everything's hunky-dory. Here is the soundbite.
After 4 years of that, being told that the last election was fake and that Donald Trump wasn't really elected and that Russia intervened, after 4 years of that, now these same people are told, you just sit down and shut up. If you have any concerns about election integrity, you're a nutcase. You should shut up. Well, I tell you what, 74 million Americans are not going to shut up, and telling them that their views don't matter and that their concerns don't matter and they should just be quiet is not a recipe for the unity that I hear now the other side is suddenly so interested in after years of trying to delegitimize President Donald Trump. So suffice it to say, I'm not too keen on lectures about how Missourians and others who voted for President Trump and now have some concerns about fraud, about integrity, about compliance with the law should just be quiet and that they are somehow not patriotic if they raise these questions.
Damn straight. Exactly right. He could not be more on point. 4 years. 4 years we were told that the last election was illegitimate, that Trump was a traitor, that he was a Russian agent, that he stole the election for his buddy Vladimir Putin. The same people leveling that allegation are now telling all of us, sit down, shut up, there's nothing to see here. This was the most secure election in American history. So just shut up. There wasn't any fraud. There wasn't any of this. Just shut. The same people who lied to us and lied about us and sponsored the Mueller investigation and all this other, the phony impeachment on the perfect Ukraine call, you name it, the same people are now telling us to stop whining, to stop complaining, to stop moaning, that we've got nothing to complain about, that this election was entirely secure. And Josh Hawley says, we're smarter than this. 74+ million Americans are not going to shut up. And you tell them that their views don't matter? You tell them that they're basically a bunch of kooks? You do not know what you're creating. You do not know the enemy you are manufacturing. If you think 74 million Americans are going to just sit around and pretend everything's okay, like they've done in the past, you have another thing coming. Now, I'll tell you, somebody was watching this. Gloria Borger, CNN, very, very worried. Breonna Taylor talked to her, said Senator McConnell finally acknowledged that Biden won the 2020 presidential race. The president responded with a critical tweet saying that it was too soon for Republicans to give up. So the question is, Gloria, which side do Republicans take here?
Josh Hawley this morning, Senator Hawley, came out and said, I haven't really decided what to do. So is he a potential 2024 candidate? I think so. It's pretty obvious. And so if you're a 2024 candidate and Donald Trump did have 74 million votes, maybe you're going to hang back a little. It's all about politics. It has nothing to do with the Constitution. It has nothing to do with the law. It has nothing to do with this election, which was free and which was fair.
Isn't that amazing? The evidence of fraud is all over the place. There is so much more evidence of fraud than there ever was in the 2016 election. There was not a shred of evidence of anything being fraudulent in the 2016 election. They made all of it up. And people like Gloria Borger spread the lies reported by the New York Times and others at CNN, just spread those lies, doing everything they could to try to convince average Americans that the election in 2016 was illegitimate, that Trump was illegitimate, that Trump stole it, colluded with the Russians, he's a traitor, he's a spy, all of this stuff. Now we move forward to 2020, and the same people are telling us what a fair and open and fraud-free election we just had. And now she's disparaging Josh Hawley. Well, he may not really mean it. He's seeking the Republican nomination in 2024. So Josh Hawley, he has to go out and say what he thinks the Trump base wants to hear. Let's play Josh Hawley again. You tell me if you think this is somebody who's being insincere in his comments. Soundbite 25, 3, 2, 1, hit it.
After 4 years of that, being told that the last election was fake and that Donald Trump wasn't really elected and that Russia intervened, after 4 years of that, now these same people are told, you just sit down and shut up. If you have any concerns about election integrity, you're a nutcase. You should shut up. Well, I tell you what, 74 million Americans are not going to shut up, and telling them that their views don't matter and that their concerns don't matter and they should just be quiet is not a recipe for the unity that I hear now the other side is suddenly so interested in after years of trying to delegitimize President Donald Trump. So suffice it to say, I'm not too keen on lectures about how Missourians and others who voted for President Trump and now have some concerns about fraud, about integrity, about compliance with the law should just be quiet and that they are somehow not patriotic if they raise these questions.
Exactly right. Then they are. Biden's out there demanding unity. This is the guy that wanted to use the Logan Act to get rid of Trump. He did use the Logan Act, try to get rid of Michael Flynn. This is the guy who was right there at the right hand of Barack Hussein Obama, trying to do everything they could to undermine Trump's transition and then Trump's presidency after trying to sabotage his campaign. Now all of a sudden they get elected, and it's time for unity, don't you know? Why, it's time to put all of this acrimony aside. Well, there's nothing to see here. This was the cleanest, the purest election in American history. There was nothing to see here. And you people are a bunch of kooks if you think that there was fraud. Well, gosh, folks, I don't know how many witnesses have come forth and testified with affidavits of the fraud they witnessed. It's hundreds and hundreds of them out there. So, anyway, they're worried about Hawley. Gloria Borger. Oh, I don't know what his plans are. I don't think he's being sincere. He's just trying to say what the Trump base wants to hear. And once again, what does that mean? It means you people are a bunch of kooks, and that anybody, Trump or anybody that wants to be elected Republican president, is going to have to find a way to communicate with you kooks. And they're not going to let go of this. So that's the only I guess modus operandi they have is to try to persuade and convince everybody that anybody who opposes a Democrat being elected president is somehow a kook. A couple more audio sound bites before we hit the break, and they are from Calypso Louis. Minister Farrakhan. Headlines don't tell you what Calypso Louis really said. This was Saturday at the all-virtual National African Black Leadership Summit. Nation of Islam leader Calypso Louis Farrakhan delivered a closing message, a portion of what he said here.
The biggest slap in the face to Trump was when the man he called Sleepy Joe became the president-elect of the United States of America and called a black woman to his side. She ain't no lightweight. Kamala Harris is a heavyweight. And look at how white folks are thinking right now. She's a heartbeat away from being the first black president. If he dies while in office, so white folks are upset. And now we have to survive because the death plan is in motion.
What the hell does that mean? Now we have to survive because the death plan is in motion. As Calypso Louis openly speculating about Plugs Biden dying in office, making Kamala the first black president. And he said, if he dies while in office. So white folks are upset. Now we have to survive because the death plan is in motion. Obama was the first black president. I'm sure Calypso Louis meant the first female black. You don't think so? Oh, wait a minute. Calypso Louis did not believe that Obama was genuinely black, right? Calypso Louis, my memory is that he had problems with Obama because Obama's mama was white, if I recall correctly. At any rate, I'm still trying to. So white folks are upset. Why are white folks upset? And now we have to survive because the death plan is in motion. Anybody know what he's talking about? The death plan. He just alluded to it. He's openly speculating. You fill in the blank. Here's one more little soundbite. He continued speaking. We have it.
Do you believe that Satan is concerned about vaccinating you? You trust him. After all that he's done to destroy us, you trust him. How could you allow him to stick a needle into you saying he's helping you? They give you free shots of toxic waste. You on a death watch. Well, if you don't show that you're vaccinated, you can't come to school. What a blessing! Tell the cracker, I ain't coming to your school.
Right, so obviously Calypso Louis believes that the coronavirus vaccine is toxic waste. It is the white devil's revenge for electing Kamala Harris. And he's trying to talk his followers into not trusting the devil, the white devil, asking them how you could sit by and allow the devil to stick a needle into you saying he's helping you. Tell that cracker I ain't coming to your school. And there you have more wisdom from Calypso Louis, Minister Farrakhan, the Nation of Islam. We'll be right back and continue. Back to the phones after this.
Limbaugh radio program will continue.
Rush Limbaugh annoying the left coast to coast
on the EIB network.
On the program, 800-282-2882. Here's Carrie in Clemens, North Carolina. You're next as we head back to the phones. Hello, sir.
Rush, it's an honor and a privilege to talk to you, my friend.
Thank you, sir, very much.
It's been a great 30-year run. You said something the other week to a guy. He called, and you were kind of dumbfounded in the fact that we are losing our rights left and right, and we're doing nothing about it. And the other day you had a lady on there who was basically saying what we all feel, what we know to be true, what we're seeing right before our very eyes, and then you asked her a question. You asked her, what are you going to do about it? And she said she didn't know. And it seems to be a theme that I've been hearing, and so I've been thinking about it, I've been praying about it, and I got through. So maybe this is a message I can say to everybody and my fellow Americans. And the answer to your question is why we haven't been doing anything, Rush, is because most of us want to be left alone. Most of us want to be left to live in peace, to raise our families, and to trust those who we put up there to serve us and to have our voice and to carry out the will of the people. And it hasn't worked. We call, we vote them in, and they do absolutely nothing. I do have a solution, my brother, and I hope my fellow Americans are listening. There's something we absolutely can do. There's something we must do if we do not want to lose this great country that we have, that we all love and adore. We've been lazy. We've taken for granted what we've had as a people. Through subtlety they've come through. That subtlety has become a nudge. That nudge has become a push. And my fellow Americans, that push has now become them banging on our front door.
What is it that we should do?
We need to march, brother. We need to meet on January 5th, and I'm not talking about 1 million. I'm talking 10 million. I'm talking about a voice to encourage the cowards who are in Washington, who do nothing, who don't have the courage to stand because it's more important for them to live by what they're being, the parties they're allowed to go through. We also need to stand as one voice and one people in Washington, D.C. to support this man who has been left alone and all by himself as those surrounded by his enemies constantly. And I think if we as brothers and sisters, as Americans, meet together on January 2nd to help cross the line for those who give them courage to cross that line, and maybe our president comes speak. Rush, maybe you could talk to Hannity, you could talk to Mark and all the other guys and push this, speak, encourage the American people. That's something we could do. We could stand as one people, one voice, and let them hear us loud and clear.
Well, there have been a number of those. Now, there haven't been marches with millions, but there have been marches and gatherings in Washington with tens of thousands. A bunch of people have sponsored those. I have mixed emotions about it. Look, I understand the sentiment. I understand the show of force that it would represent. I got to take a break. I've got 5 seconds here, so let me react when we get back. Don't go away, folks. Tea Party. This is my response to the last caller who thinks we need to get millions and millions of people showing up in Washington. Ladies and gentlemen, I firmly believe that the left knows who we are. They know how many of us there are. They don't need us to all gather in Washington for them to know that. There is no way that the left is going to change how they operate simply because millions of us might show up in Washington for a protest. Look at the Tea Party featured countless. I mean, I forgot how many. There were public protests and marches all over Washington that the Tea Party was responsible for, starting back in 2010. I'm not trying to be dismissive of the idea, and I'm not. I mean, if it happened, it would be a great sight. Don't misunderstand. It's just I don't think that the left is clueless about who we are and how many of us there are. I think they have a pretty good idea, and it's one of the reasons why they operate the way they do. It's why they're so authoritarian. We outnumber them. And I don't think that there's anything that can be done to persuade them. There's nothing to be gained by showing. These people are going to have to be defeated election after election after. I know. Here we got fraud. Here we got this and that and the other thing. It just means we don't stop. It just means we don't give up. You know, people call here and now, Rush, you always told us. You told us when it's going to be time to panic. Well, is it time to panic? Well, let me just tell you, folks, it's never going to be time to panic because we're never going to give up. We're not going to give up on America. I'm not. I don't think most of you are either. And while we have that attitude of not giving up, we are constantly going to be searching, strategizing, coming up with ways to prevail. We've got the basics. We have millions and millions of Americans that are fed up, can't wait to do something about it. There will be a series of ideas that people come up with based on dealing with the fraud that we know we have to deal with. But America's worth it. America is worth fighting for. America's worth not giving up. And that's why I think whatever form it takes, we will continue to fight for and to defend and to triumph. I know the odds are, they're stiff, and they're steep. The American left is made up of a lot of people that hate this country. Hate is a very, very destructive frame of mind. It's a very, very destructive characteristic. And eventually it results in implosion. You cannot survive on hatred. You cannot sustain a movement based on it. We just need to be patient while being vigilant and continuing to fight for what we believe in, knowing full well that we can prevail. And while we may not have the golden goose idea right now for how to do it, there are countless people thinking about it, strategizing. We're not alone. You're not alone. You're not a singular individual all by yourself out there trying to fight these people by yourself. There are 74 million plus and growing. And they want to march on Washington. They want to do this. They want to go there. They want to make themselves known. They want to make themselves heard. They want to do something. They want to take some kind of action to demonstrate to the left that we're not buying this. You didn't win this thing fair and square, and we are not just going to be docile like we've been in the past and go away and wait till the next election. We had a leader, Donald Trump. Remains to be seen what Trump does, depending on what happens in January. But this party is Donald Trump. This party is Trumpism. And in fact, let me find this real quick. I've got a quote here from Mitt Romney, who thinks that Trumpism is going to be around a long time. Yeah, we're not going to be, the mainstream Republican Party is not going to be able to get rid of Trumpism. While I look for this, let me go back to the phones. Rockford, Illinois. This is Gene. Welcome to the EIB Network. Hello.
Hi, Rush. What a thrill. Let me offer you my prayers and everything to you and your family as you deal with your crisis. I'll make it quick. My twin sister and I traveled to D.C. last weekend to participate in the rally, and my husband made a hotel reservation for us. You were talking about voter ID last hour. Well, wouldn't you know, when I went to check into the downtown hotel, I gave the name, and the gentleman asked for an ID, a photo ID. And he took my ID and he said, well, the reservation is under your husband's name. I said, or under your, he didn't say my husband, but he said under another name. I said, yeah, it's probably my husband. He made the reservation. He said, well, I'm going to need to call him. He had to call my husband on the phone with my picture ID to get permission to check me into my hotel room. Voter ID is unbelievably needed in this country.
Damn straight it is. Damn straight it is.
And I just want to say, Rush, one more thing. I ordered T-shirts and hats for my twin sister and I, and we proudly wore your T-shirt and hat in D.C. on Saturday. Got our photo taken at the Supreme Court. We love you so much and are praying so hard for you. I have been to shrines over the course of the last several months, prayed for you always. We love you. We thank you for what you're doing, for your voice. And anyway, I'm just thrilled. Christmas came early for me getting to talk to you today.
Well, I don't know what to say. I appreciate that more than you know.
And my sister has talked to you too, and she's actually, our local station here uses her soundbite as in their bumper when they're going to breaks. And it's hilarious. So we keep hearing her on the radio talking to you, and we just love you, and you are in our hearts and in our prayers.
Well, let me tell you, I love all of you too, more than you will ever know. And it's I've been looking for ways to say it throughout the entire 30 years I've been doing this. I've been looking for ways to express the gratitude, and I know nothing more than just how to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. I can't tell you how that touches me. What you've said. Just thank you so much, and I hear the sincerity in your voice, and it moves me like you cannot believe, you cannot understand. Gene, thank you very much. This reminds me of something, folks. The goodness that is done. No, I couldn't find, but I know it's here. Mitt Romney. It's either a soundbite or it's a story I've got. I can't. But Romney has openly said that he doesn't think Trumpism is going anywhere. The Republican Party is Trump's party, and it's not going to change anytime soon, which I thought was I don't know if he means it. I don't know if he's serious about it. I don't know if he's pandering, but it's still an amazing thing to say. And I know it's here somewhere. But back to my other thing. The goodness that is done by all of you is never going to be reported in the mainstream media. And that's okay, but it's not. You are some of the most, generous, giving, selfless people in the world. And I know that you don't engage in your generosity and your charitable acts just to get noticed for it. That's not why you do it. You do it because it's the right thing to do. But it's important that you know how much your support of all of the campaigns that we have run here at the EIB Network and the RushLimbaugh.com store mean to us. The most recent one that we're running is the Support Our Heroes campaign at the Rush Limbaugh Show store. And you have, once again, responded to what you've seen, and you've come through. Because of you, we've been able to raise hundreds of thousands of dollars that were donated directly to law enforcement and their families. While the Democrats are out talking about defund the police and doing this, that, and the other thing and criticizing them, you have been supporting them. I mean, this has been an incredible year. Our police have been demeaned. They've been ridiculed for actions by individual evil people, not the entire police force. Some weeks ago, we asked this audience to nominate heroes that you personally know or know of in law enforcement. We promised to donate 100% of the profits from the Rush Limbaugh Show store to this campaign. And we have. 100% of the profits have gone to law enforcement. We received thousands of entries. People were incredibly touching in their descriptions of the law enforcement people they nominated. I wanted to share one with you as an example of the type of heroes who are out there in our police force and the types of wonderful people that Support Our Heroes campaign is recognizing this year. Officer Aaron, E-R-I-N, severely injured after routine traffic stop turned into a shootout with an armed suspect who had an AK-47. Officer Aaron was struck by the suspect, lost part of her hand, but continued to return fire, with her partner demonstrating an incredible will to survive. Since that shooting, another part of her hand had to be amputated due to the pain. As a result of the disability, she had to reluctantly leave her job in law enforcement. However, Officer Aaron, E-R-I-N, continues to give back to law enforcement using her shooting and survival as a training that she does not accept any compensation for. She is training others based on her own actions. She's doing it gratis. This is selfless dedication. Even after her injury has saved officers' lives by her willingness to share her horrible experience. Officer Aaron only wishes for other officers to come home safely at the end of their shift. She's brave, honest, humble. Truly an example of overcoming adversity. On that day and always, Aaron displayed the gentleness of a mother when needed and a strong, commanding officer when it was required. And we would not have heard of her if she hadn't been nominated by somebody in this audience for her heroism. And we were able to learn about her story, and direct some of the profits from the EIB store, the Rush Limbaugh store, to Officer Aaron and her family. And it's because of people like you making it possible. So you're doing great things. The goodness that's in your hearts, the things that you have enabled us to do throughout this entire year. Mainstream media will never report it, but you know it. And that's what matters.
He didn't start it, but he'll be happy to finish it. Rush on the EIB network.
Ladies and gentlemen, there is one college that's done more to educate you on the words and meaning of our Constitution than any other college, and that's Hillsdale College. Their interest in informing and educating you on the Constitution is purely altruistic. It's rooted in the Screw Charter. You see, since 1844, Hillsdale has been defending the freedoms found in our Constitution and educating as many people as they can about it. Now, when Hillsdale's faculty and administration introduced their online Constitution 101 course nearly 10 years ago, the goal was to allow as many of you to learn free on your own time with the help of this video series. And since then, they've developed nearly 36 online courses, and every one of them absolutely free to watch and to learn from, exploring our freedoms, our free market economy, as well as our nation's history. Thanks to the many supporters of Hillsdale College, all of this is available to you at your fingertips. El Fribo. It's a college doesn't take a dime of government money. They're self-sufficient in their efforts, and as a result, they are free to choose the curriculum they feel is best to educate and prepare their students, as well as those who are students well beyond their college years. Stay informed. RushForHillsdale.com. That's how you access all that they're making available to everybody. RushForHillsdale.com. Here's the Romney story. Mitt Romney laments Trump's continued substantial influence on the GOP. He says, I don't think Trumpism is going away. I think if you look at the people who are rumored to be thinking of running in 2024, besides Trump, those are people who are trying to appeal to a kind of populist approach. So I don't think Trumpism is going away. He's not happy about it. Mitt Romney not happy about that. So, there's just not time to be fair with another caller. So I do want to make I had a call wanting to discuss AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She is taking shots at Pelosi and Schumer. She thinks they need to go. I had a caller asking if that was actually true. It is. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Rush Limbaugh, pointing the way on the EIB network. Now, Hillary Clinton's recently discovered Secretary of State on hold message.
You have reached the office of the United States Secretary of State. For directions, press 1. For tour information, press 2. For help with a problem, please press 3.
For help with your problem, please continue to hold. You are caller number 1014. For faster results, press 6 for our foundational concierge service. Welcome to Pay for Play. Help 3 needy Americans and get your business deal approved overnight by making a voluntary tax-deductible donation to the Bill, Hillary, and sometimes Chelsea Clinton Foundation. Enter your gift amount now with the touch-tone keys on your phone and wait for instructions. For $500, you couldn't look at the building for that. $5,000, great. You're now on our Christmas card list. $50,000 will get you a complimentary coffee mug with her face on it and a Christmas card. $5 million? How can we help you? Endorse your dictatorial regime, approve your sketchy international transaction, or provide you with needed national security secrets. For $5 million, we can do it all. Just send your request and credit card number in an email. Please make it in the form of a yoga class schedule or wedding planning question. But don't send it to her official email. Send it to mamamula@buymysecretaryofstate.com. Thank you for using our foundational concierge service, a product of Pay for Play. Bye-bye.
You have reached the office of the United States Secretary of State. For directions...
Do you ever experience headaches, perspiration, a strange burning sensation in your jaw, or persistent brain fog?
Yeah, brain fog.
Then you may be Wi-Fi sensitive or Wi-Fi intolerant. Dr. Jeffrey Frizzell, Associate Professor of Middle East Literature, recently said,
AM and FM radio waves obviously cancel each other out, but Wi-Fi waves are running wild through our bodies.
And what people are susceptible to Wi-Fi waves?
Of those who are on a gluten-free diet.
So gluten actually protects you from Wi-Fi?
Yes, absolutely.
Add gluten to your diet today and save yourself from the ravages of unwanted emails and internet searches traveling through your body. This message brought to you by the United Gluten Industry Council, the Friends of Gluten, and this station.
There you go. Fastest 3 hours in media. And it's done. The Rush Limbaugh program in the EIB network. Great to have you with us, ladies and gentlemen, as it is each and every day. And yes, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is very worried that Pelosi and Schumer are way too old, that they have lost touch, that they don't really have the energy anymore to lead the movement that she thinks they're botching. We'll keep a sharp eye on that. We'll see you next time. Thanks so much, as always, for being with us.